You said no one would surprise you anymore?
No, that's really a surprise.
We will try to do it fast. Some people are already leaving. If you need to go, please go. Otherwise, you're very welcome to stay. We will discuss the film a little bit, and then you will also have a chance to ask questions. It's directly by UEFA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So now you can tell me what you were trying to tell me already before.
Why I did the film?
Why you did the film?
Yeah, I explained that before.
You did.
Yeah.
But how come really you chose this topic? You said that you don't know a lot about football yourself.
Yeah.
That you're not a fan or a football player. Why really football?
Yeah, because it's one of the team sports where it's so difficult to come out, and it's in the professional football where it seems to be a taboo. For example, in rugby, they told me some people it's not so popular sport all over the world, globally seen. There are some very known players. They live openly gay, but in football it seems to be not to be possible. And there are a lot of people in professional football. They think they have to maintain these stereotypical ideas of masculinity and homosexuality that don't fit together.
Okay, thank you. We saw in the film basically two clubs, one in Switzerland and one in Germany, where the story unfolds. How you did mention that football is a place where homosexuality is still some sort of taboo, both in Switzerland and in Germany. How did you manage to work with the clubs?
But in the same time, we live in a time where everyone has to be politically correct, and homophobia in our society is not well seen. It's not cool to be against gay people, though also most of the clubs, they claim to be open for diversity, and they claim to be against homophobia. They will sign papers for the issue, but inside the clubs, there you will find a lack of real active engagement and of awareness of the issue. These two clubs, they are known to be more liberal than other clubs, and of course we had an agreement with them. We had meetings before, and they were ready to completely support our project.
According to your knowledge, was there any backlash into because we know that each club has then the extreme supporters, the ultras. I am not aware of either of these clubs. Do they have something that they would have a backlash within their own fan clubs, especially, or
it depends of the club culture. You can call it. For example, St. Pauli is known since years that they are really they position themselves very political. And they always had in their statuten,
in the statutes,
there was from the beginning of this club. They always said they're against fascism and against homophobia, and it's not allowed to sing homophobian songs in the stadium. They're very progressive, and eBay in Switzerland also is known more as a left-wing fan base. But there are more conservative clubs, and it would be difficult for someone, for example, a player in St. Pauli. He can come out, and he has all the support of the club, of the leadership, of the fan base. But when he wants to be sold after 3 years to another club, it would be maybe difficult if you want to play in Russia or I don't know where. I don't know how it's here.
Here we have a special story, but let's focus on you and the film. We saw a show of hands before. Some people have seen Rosie. Maybe if we go back to her, if in that film there are some elements of autobiography, so you drew from your own life. Where did you did mention a little bit that you got the idea from your colleague. Where did you draw the basically the story, the love story from?
Yeah, love stories are universal, and it's always the same thing. Romeo and Julia, they had problems to come together because there was a surrounding which didn't want to come them together. So this structure is well known, and here it's in another environment. Two people fall in love to each other, but they cannot go together because there is it's in fact a film about difficulties in your professional life.
Okay, so problems at work.
Yeah.
Maybe one thing that I noticed, I've seen both. I mean, I know that you have directed other films as well, but within this, let's say, film festival, we have seen Rosie and now Mario. Rosie was a little bit more upbeat as a film, had more humorous elements, and this one not really that many. It did have a few, but not really that many. How would you, are you as the director, you see the life more glooming, or is it this because you chose the subject matter in such a way? We don't really see a lot of positive outlooks, let's say, or something that is fun.
Yeah, it's a choice, of course. When you see the end of the film, I wanted it to have an ending which corresponds to the reality of today. Gay football players, that they have to hide, they have to live in secret. And it was difficult to bring humor in this story when you take it seriously. But different screenings, I saw people laughing a lot because of the absurdity of what is happening. It's so absurd when you have to play a heterosexual, a straight couple to the outside. It's really absurd, but it's just what happens nowadays in Germany. For example, there are agencies for gay players, and they will mediate women for the public life. It's what's happening in the big clubs in Germany. I did a lot of research. I cannot call names, of course, but it's absurd. And when I see this, I have to laugh myself. But it's a bitter humor.
Okay, dark humor. Maybe one thing that was interesting for me when I watched the film, that even though we know that the characters will not come out, or we assume that they will not come out publicly, there are not really that many homophobic people. Like, also the reaction of his agent, even though at first it is homophobic, but when he, speaks with him, he understands. And maybe even the father, the reaction was not necessarily, oh, you're queer, but how can you then play football, So how, you did say that this translates into the reality that you see. Maybe, as you also mentioned, this would not be the same in Russia or even Slovenia, but how did you manage to basically create this atmosphere, but do not put the really negative characters, or many of them, in the film?
Yes, in the first drafts of the script, there were more black and white. There were homophobic people, but I wanted to put a more modern focus on the subject. And nowadays, it depends in which culture you are socialized, in which you grow up, and in Western Occidental countries, it's not correct to be homophobic. And as an individual, everyone will tell you, I have no problem with gay people. But yeah, that's always the thing. And the but in football is always the system. It's the big system which does not allow that we can come out as a gay player. It's the fans, it's the sponsors, it's the sales abroad and everything. And I call that the hidden homophobia, in fact. You give die Schuld wird jemand anderem to blame something other. I don't think that the father is homophobic. He's really seeing his dream, because he could not be a professional player, and he is afraid that this dream is destroyed because of a stupid sex story, he calls it. And I think he's not a homophobic, really homophobic, but fathers always have more problem than mothers when their sons come out.
Maybe something that was not that, let's say, visible, or maybe it was, but the reaction within the club that most players assume or know, not just the guy that blackmails basically him, but because you did say that you did some research. Do you think this is, and I know that you got some feedback also from the people in football, but also some gay players. Would you now, because you got this feedback after you have shot the film, do you think this portrays a realistic situation in a locker room, let's say, or?
I tried to invent, of course, a realistic story of all the stories I heard. When I did the research, I meet managers, I need one player who stopped his career and came out after. I met young players, and everything what I heard is in the film now, and the feedbacks are positive. Yeah, they say it's quite realistic story. They think it could happen like that. What a team does, you shouldn't forget that in the U21, it's the last years when really decision is made if you can get be pro or not, and there is a big competition. So maybe even these young players are not homophobic, but they're using the weakness of another to strengthen their own position. That's the thing what I wanted to show there. I don't know where homophobic people nowadays hide as the gay people hide, so it's difficult to say who is real homophobic and who is not.
You will find them. I gave you some homework, if you remember, at the start of the film, to make mental and notes on the phone. Anyone already? Yes, we already have. I have some more questions, but let's give.
I have two questions actually. The first one is you chose St. Pauli as a team. So I want to know if the fans on the stadium they knew about the film, what the theme of the film. And the second question is the players of eBay. They were professionals? I mean, they were players or actors? And if they were players, did they know, and how did they react to that?
Okay. For the first question, St. Pauli, of course, our actors and our team played the games in an empty stadium. And we did the audience in a real match. Of course, this audience didn't know that they are filmed. We had to pay for it, for the Senderechte. And then after it was put together digitally at the end, it was very complicated because of the angle of the camera, and we had to construct a big green screen all over the stadium. It was very expensive, just for 1 minute at the end. And but I hope that it will come out as a good scene when he comes, when he's very lonely in the middle of the field, and it worked out. But this was really stressful to do it, because I never worked with digital effects. And the other question was
Were the others actors or players?
no, we could have everything: the brand, the shirts, the training places, the stadium, but not the real players, because they were in competition at the time and they wouldn't mir ihre Truppe anvertrauen für 10 Tage. How can you say it?
Aha. Yeah.
Because there is a director who has no idea of football and he makes something where they had to be there for 10 days and they were in full competition. And when you have real players, they are afraid to
get injured.
There
was
hurt.
one very
Yeah.
good.
So it was five of these players were actors. Everybody who says a little sentence in the film is an actor, and the rest was amateur players. And of course, I had a coach to train the whole team before, because they never played together. And yeah.
Did you play?
No, I hate. I did gymnastics when the other played in school.
That's also sport. Some other questions from the audience? Yes.
Is this number 7 maybe somehow connected with the famous number 7 of Cristiano Ronaldo?
Yeah, I think so. I asked the actors which number they want to have, and they explained me a lot of things. I all forgot. It's very important which number you have on your back, and of course this is. But also I talked to the coach. Is it realistic that one Stürmer, vorne, how do you say in English? Attacker, he has this number, is this realistic? And so they decided, it's not me who decided the number. But Ronaldo is an interesting subject, I think. There is even a poster in the film, as you have seen in the room.
Same agency for him as well.
He protects all the stuff that happens in the living room, in the bedroom. He's the angel.
Še kakšno vprašanje iz publike, prosim.
Yeah, I would like to thank you for a wonderful movie, a very serious portrayal, and I thought it was really quite realistic. For me, it was interesting that you focus really on the players, what is happening in the locker rooms, in the management, and so on and so forth, and about homophobia there. But the other thing, which is probably just as important, would be to focus, but that would be then a completely different film, on homophobia amongst the fans, because that's where homophobia and racism is prevailing. And in some countries they've done a lot of work, for example in Britain, I know the situation a little bit better, and I wonder if there are similar efforts in Germany as well in that respect.
No, I'm afraid not really. Everything that had to do with racism, that is really, they did a lot of work, but with homophobia, no. It's not really an issue that seems to be important in many clubs. They say it's such a minority problem, and we have bigger problems than that. I think it's not really on the top of the priority list of the clubs. No, there are gay fan clubs now in many clubs in Europe, and of course the leadership of the club will not say no. It's you can do that, and so they have to the outside. They always can say, yeah, but we have our gay fan clubs also. But as I told before, I think inside the clubs there is no really active engagement to that issue, and I don't know if really the fans are the problem. That maybe a minority of the fans would not accept. Do you think the fans is the big problem?
I think for the players it is psychologically, they are scared of.
Yeah.
That's why they are so scared and terrified of coming out.
But they use that the fans always say bad things and shout bad things in the stadium. I think it's more the economical problem. I'm not sure if the fans is the problem, because you can educate the fans if really the leadership of a club wants to do that, but they're not ready.
Prosinka?
Yeah, thanks for a really strong movie, and I think you're really courageous because you know we all want to see them happy in the end, but you dare to show that at this moment it's about football or, you know, the life, the honest life. So, and it's not an easy choice, I guess, because, you know, many people will say, why doesn't it end? Why is there no optimism? Why is there no vision that you give? You know? So,
yeah, there is the American philosophy. They always show at the end how it should be done, yeah? And we're good people and everything goes fine. Be courageous, do it, and you will see it's not so, es wird nicht so schlimm sein.
It will not be so bad, yeah.
Yeah, but I thought for this film I wanted to go the audience out of the cinema and change something in the real world, not in the cinema. I have a lot of feedback now on Facebook on the side of the film, and they want to have a sequel, Mario 2, where the two come together.
Maybe
But-
in 10 years' time.
Yeah, exactly. This was also maybe in 10 years' time you will, because you said that you want to portray a realistic approach. Maybe in 10 years this will be the realistic approach.
Yeah, but then the film wouldn't be necessary.
Trust me, there are places where they need such films. A few more questions. One thing that you told me now is let's say the lifespan of this festival touring for you ends where?
Here in Ljubljana. I said after Ljubljana it's done, because I have been in so much festivals, and also for the opening the film was sold in many countries and had a cinema release. So I've been in the UK for the cinema release, in France, in Germany, at the United States, and then I said the last one I do is Ljubljana, and then finished.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for choosing Ljubljana to be the final step in this touring. You did mention all these places that you have been. The film was nominated several times as well. Got at least one that I remember, the main award. But because even though it tackles with a very sensitive issue, the film got a lot of positive reviews. But how would you define success of this film? Did it reach your aims or not yet, or not really?
I don't know. Yeah, it's a media Evenement and Medienereignis.
Hype.
Yeah, it's a media hype, always with the subject. It was sold to many countries, but it's difficult to get the people into the cinema to see the movie, because the football fans, they say it's a gay thing and it goes not good with football, and many gay people don't like football too much
Or sport in
but
general.
in fact this film was not meant for the gay community in the ghetto. I wanted to do a film just to maintain the discussion about the issue. And I think because it was so much in the media in many countries, so it helped to maintain just the awareness and the discussion.
So to a level, or to a majority of the level, you have reached your goals.
Yeah, I think so.
And when does the new Brokeback Mountain of Marcel come out?
So I don't know. I'll see you in 4 years here.
But yeah, let's see on the price tag. But if I understand you well, it is better that we don't meet necessarily in here, but like in mainstream cinemas with full of audience, but then I don't know how I will be able to entertain them, you know, because
Yeah, the next film, I don't know, will be more radical maybe, but this one, yeah, it would have been fine to just to show it more in regular festivals and regular cinemas.
okay, there is still time, of course. Not necessarily that you need to run around the world to show it, but I hope that some movie theaters will pick it up. It is definitely a very important film for the LGBT community, for the field of sport, especially football, and yeah, thank you so much for this. Če ima še kdo kakšno vprašanje, je zdaj super priložnost. So this is basically your last chance to ask directly some questions, because you heard in 4 years we have a chance to see him again. Otherwise, I would really like to thank you again and in my sporty equipment. Hvala tudi vam, ko ste prišli, ko ste ostali, ko ste poslušali umestni entertainment in za vse te nevšečnosti. Tako da hvala, vidimo se v naslednjih dneh.